Hello? Is this working? It's really slow on my end, so. I see an eye. People are coming. I hope. Here's my. Here's the lizard. I didn't know. I was like, oh, let's start early, so figured lizard can hang out with us for a couple minutes. Probably have to put him back. His name is Voyager. He's making lots of grumpy sounds. Hi, Jackie. I'm excited to, I guess, have you listen to me read. There is a little bit of a delay when you comment in the box, so if you comment something and don't say something immediately back, that's why I'm not just being rude and ignoring you. So we're gonna wait a few minutes and just let people kind of come in. We did start a little early. Um, so yeah, I'm just hanging out for a second. Yes, it's Voyager. He's the best, sort of. I think he's going in the shed. So hope. Thanks. Hey, since you're commenting, can you tell me is can you see this all right? Because it's really slow on my end, so I can't tell if the video looks good at all. Um, so if it's bad, let me know, and I'll switch to the phone or something like that. Hello, people coming. This is so exciting. I mean, I would have been okay if it was just an empty room. I'm like, I can just talk to myself. I do. It's fine. Whatever. If you're coming in, this is Voyager. He is a crested gecko. He's gonna be 3 years old in September. They're really cool lizards. It doesn't demand much of me. We just hang out. Okay, good. As long as it sounds good, that's fine. Frame rates, whatever. This isn't a pretty background, so it's fine. But it does get weird. Please feel free to comment, and I'll be happy to switch over and stuff like that. Because yeah, my internet's just not that good here. So yeah. So how's everyone doing? I hope well as things can be. Here's the boy again. I might see. I might switch over to my phone real quick since we have a minute, just to see if that'll read a little better. Also, I'm going to be reading from my phone, so if that's a problem, I'm sorry, I guess. Actually, I guess if I'm doing something from my phone, I won't be. I don't know. We'll see. We're on an adventure together. It's alright. I used to do programs with live birds, so, I like to think it keeps me pretty chill. Nothing in my hand that can take anyone's, fingers off, so, we're gonna be alright. Like that. Yeah, my internet's just not. Also, I'm gonna be reading from my phone, so if that's a problem, I'll just keep it on the computer. Like I said, if the frame rate gets too weird or something like that, just let me know, and we will switch. If you don't like to watch it, you can just click off the audio and just listen. Hello, welcome, welcome. We'll give it another minute or two for people to kind of trickle in. Trickle in. Good at English. I come up with great words. Yes, thank you, Sarah, for posting the link. I will talk a little bit about that in a second. Want to highlight some really important and cool programs out there. I'm gonna go ahead and put them back just a second. If anyone's just tell someone that pops in if they're like, "Where are you?" Just be like, "Just put back a lizard. It's fine. I'll be right back." There you go. Okay, Grumpy Man's back. Disinfectant. Keep him clean. Keep him safe. I bought this as hand sanitizer, but literally it's just like alcohol spray you use like on like electronic stuff. It smells terrible, but you know I bought it back when you couldn't find anything, so it is what it is. Also, Coke from the glass bottle. It does taste better. People used to be like, it tastes better, and I'd be like, nah, bro, what are you talking about? But it's true, it does. So let's see, what time is it? 7:02. This is like the awkward, bumbly teacher waiting for students phase for me. It's 7:03. I think we can go ahead and get started. That's cool. Hopefully. Again, my feed is a little laggy. I apologize for that. So again, the comments are coming in. There is a little bit of a delay, but if you are totally like, I can't hear or see anything, please let me know, and I'm happy to switch over. And I appreciate your patience with kind of the conditions I'm working in. Sometimes the internet's all right here, and then sometimes it's not. It's been kind of worse because for whatever reason, when it rains here, which it's been doing a lot in Florida, my internet stops working. Um, Good thing to have in Florida, hurricane place. Um, so again, thank you everyone who's come today. My name, if you don't know, is Ashely Adams. I wrote down some notes because I'm a little like brain mush lately. So my name's Ashely Adams. I am, I guess, well, I'm a poet tonight. I write kind of everything, better or worse. I'm the nonfiction editor for Lammergeier, and I just graduated with my MFA from University of South Florida, which is cool, I guess. I don't know. Graduating right now kind of feels like whatever, man. It's all right, I guess. So, and I guess my writing really focuses on being mad about the state of the world and doing that through the lens of like nature and science and stuff like that. My and I'll talk a little bit, but my undergraduate was actually in fisheries and wildlife. So, you know, I'm one of the few people I think who's graduating an MFA program that's also wrestled a swan. There's probably a few of us running around, but I don't think there's a ton of us. Not at my program, at least as far as I know. So kind of before I start reading poems, things like that, I do like to start off with an acknowledgement statement, a land acknowledgement statement. This is something I like to kind of do anytime I do a thing. So I'm gonna do it, and I'll kind of explain what that is and why it's important. So the poems I'm gonna be reading today were written or inspired by, you know, were written on or inspired by the ancestral lands of the Michigan Ojibwa and the Florida Seminole tribes. And it's important for me because these poems were, and then these poems were also written in places that profited from enslaved Black people. I think that's important to mention now, in addition to the land claims. And the reason why I do that is, you know, I think land acknowledgements, they're more common in Canada than I think in America, but I think it's important to, at least for me, a lot of my work draws from, you know, the history of the land, you know, that I'm on. And so it's really important for me, you know, who's been able to live and connect with nature to, you know, acknowledge that, and also to encourage other people wherever you are to, you know, consider what land you are living on if you're someone that's, you know, is not native to that region. Connect and see who the original caretakers of land are, and see how you can, especially right now, do, you know, perform some real justice think of like restorative justice to people that have been harmed by colonization and racism over the many years in North America, kind of to North and South America, really, and all over the world. Um, so, kind of to highlight that, I also want to add in Sarah's doing a great thing, pinning the tweets there, or pinning the tweets. God, I've been on Twitter a lot. I have it on the brain. What can you do? So I would like to highlight just a couple charities. I don't have a book to sell or anything like that, so like you don't have to worry about giving money to me. Instead, if you feel like giving money, there's some cool causes out there. You've probably seen a few of them. Some I think are doing some really good work. Are the Okra Project, which specifically it uses the funds to get Black trans chefs um, into Black trans homes and provides a good, healthy meal for them. And that includes people that are housing insecure or homeless. Um, so I think that's a really cool project. Also, another one I like to highlight, we still are very much in the middle of this pandemic. I'm in Florida and we're having a decent sized spike here. Um, but there are groups that are really vulnerable. I'm pretty lucky in that I'm, able to work from home for the most part and, live in a pretty much I can stay isolated. Not everyone can or has access to resources like I do. One group that's been really heavily affected by COVID is the Navajo Nation in the Southwest. So if you would like to help those people, there is a group. Oh, my handwriting's bad. The Navajo and Hopi Families COVID-19 Relief Fund. That's a GoFundMe fund, and it provides resources to people that have been heavily affected in those nations. I also recommend if you are, looking at other places to donate or contribute time or whatever, look into mutual aid groups or funds in your local area. There's tons of them right now, tons of places doing bail funds and stuff like that. And really, I believe the best place, to put your money and to put your time is just in your local community. You know what, you and the people that live there know what needs help and what needs to be done. So yeah, it's kind of a long interlude. So thank you for listening to all of that. But I think it's important right now to speak on those things, especially for me as someone that, kind of writes from this angry political, or I think this righteously angry political space, to acknowledge all and also everything that's going on in the world. It's a lot. So I'm going to start reading some poems, pulling them up. By the way, there is at the end going to be a Q&A session. So feel free to ask some questions at any point, and I will answer them at the end. So I'm going to read a couple poems and talk a little bit about them and stuff like that. You can also just post your questions at the end. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not a cop. I don't know. I'm not going to police you. Do whatever you want. So, first poem I'm going to read is actually an older one for me. I actually am pretty, compared to other genres I've written, I'm pretty new to writing poetry. I only started doing it, when the hell would it have been? 2016. I remember being in a poetry workshop after Trump got elected. So that's kind of when I first formally started writing poetry. So not super long ago. And I was looking for some of my old stuff to see if there was anything cool that I could read. And I was like, oh hey, I didn't write garbage in 2016. There's some cool stuff in here. In honor of Pride Month, Spaces Queer. I'm gonna read a space poem. I was really into writing space poems in 2016, like about 2017. I don't write them much anymore, but it's still really cool. So in this poem, I really like big, bombastic imagery and stuff in poetry. I listen to metal music, so I think that's where I get it from. Everything has to be loud and obnoxious. So this poem is called The Princess in Blue Shift, and it's about the Andromeda Galaxy, which is the closest major neighboring galaxy to ours, is actually on a collision course with the Milky Way. Luckily for us, 2020 is a bad year, but we don't have to worry about this, barring something weird that won't happen for probably another 4 billion years. But I was really fascinated by that, and also the fact that if you look at mythology, Andromeda is like, she was chained to a rock and she was going to be offered to a sea monster and she was saved by Perseus. Like in mythology, this figure of Andromeda is very passive. So I thought it would be really interesting to kind of tie the mythology to this kind of like grand, like future destruction. Um, so yeah, this is a poem about that. So this is called "The Princess in Blue Shift." In 4 billion years, the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxy will collide. She starts, dust mote on horizon, bloom and catch, incisors in her hero's splayed limbs, the night devoured under spokes of suns moribund, her smile drips gamma decay of galaxies cannibalized, reaches a hand between Proxima and Alpha. Now there's no telling north from south, the pinwheel from the antenna. Closer comes the maiden in her chains. So yeah, just really, we're feeling really righteous in here or something. I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of an older poem I wrote. I wrote lots of space poems. If anyone wants a bunch of space poems, hit me up, I guess. So next poem I'm going to read. Like I said, I have a background in fisheries and wildlife, and part of my background in wildlife, I did lots of stuff. Had a lot of interactions with animals, which was really cool. If you can't tell from earlier when I brought my lizard out, I'm definitely an animal lover. So I wrote a poem about that. Um, Specifically, I wrote about. Sorry, I'm really spacey. This Florida heat like just melts your brain. I wrote a poem about a. I worked at a, or I volunteered at a wildlife rehab place, and many of the animals there were unreleasable, not releasable, whatever English. Who is she? I don't know her. Um, So, and one of the animals, there was very many lovely animals there. One I really liked was, and I don't remember her name anymore, but it was an owl, a great horned owl specifically that had been, and this is a pretty common thing that actually happens to birds of prey is they will get hit by cars, and they're not able to survive in the wild, due to broken wings, or in this case, with this owl, its eyes actually, I think, eyes were actually damaged. And if you looked into her eyes, you can actually see like her pupils were like almost looked like they were decaying. Like it was very weird. And apparently, this guy had found this owl. The person had found it to turn in, and it kept it for like 3 days before bringing it to the rehab shelter, which I thought was really weird. Like, what are you doing just hanging on to this like clearly injured owl like all this time? Like, so, and she was a sweet animal. I mean, I'd worked with owls before, and they can be buttheads. Spoiler: owls are they're kind of like cats, except maybe not as smart, to be honest. But still wonderful animals. So, but she was really sweet. She would basically spend all day on this perch, and that was kind of like her safe space and where she would spend most of her time. And basically, she would just stay there and be really peaceful. And so I wrote a poem just about her. So this is called Rehabilitation, a Gospel. It took 3 days to pull your wings from the metal grill. What can a man do with an owl, a shroud of cardboard and terry cloth? There's no one here to roll back your stone, to call you to choir the caterwaul thump of bullfrog strain. I don't need gauntlets to clean your perch where you turn spheres against astroturf, your eyes full of holy fire and nebula as I wonder how you sing these Golar hymns. There's no one here to bury your quiet wings, but I will wail your silhouette against the last full moon. So again, that's a poem for an owl. Um, love owls, love birds. I'm a birder for sure. So, what are you on time? Okay. So I'm gonna read two more poems. Uh, I'll give a little backstory to these. So lately, right now, my poems have been really tied in the imagery of how do I word this? Um, I've always loved paleontology, which is the study of ancient life. Um, I remember as a kid sneaking out to watch Jurassic Park. My parents thought it was too scary for me. And I was a very little kid when this movie came out. I'm a young millennial, so um, but I snuck out and watched it, and then I became obsessed with dinosaurs. So I wasn't afraid at all. And I think I've always carried that obsession with me for a long time. I wanted to be a paleontologist, and now I'm like writing about dinosaurs and ancient life. So I guess it worked out. Um, but like I said, I'm really interested and invested, I guess, in relationships to land and ancestry. Like how do how are the things we're seeing like now tied to evolution? How does that tie everything together? And how did the land? How did things billions of years ago shape the way things are now? Um, I think it's really interesting when you hear misguided people. It really can change your worldview. I think when you think about things that way, is you'll hear like people be like, oh, like people protesting now, and be like, oh, well, racism ended like 50 years ago. One, it didn't, obviously, but that civil rights movement was in the 60s. There's still many people alive. Like Americans definitely have, I think, that short term history, and it's like things go so much farther and longer, and you can't just get over that stuff. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. Is I'm going way far back. Um, it makes your brain stuff a little weird when you spend a lot of time writing paleontology, because you'll be like see like things like, oh, that was a million years ago. That was nothing. So now everything seems really short to me, I guess. But anyway, long backstory. So this next poem is about. So I consider myself, I guess, an environmentalist, whatever that means, in this day and age. And obviously, I struggle with, I think, climate grief and climate change. I think we all do. Um, they just, as if we didn't have enough to think about right now. They reported 100 degrees Fahrenheit temperature in the Arctic Circle. I believe it was in Siberia somewhere, which is just, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, guys. Lads, what do we do? I don't know. So yeah, and it's just, and everything ties together and stuff like that. So, I live in Florida, in Tampa. I live in the Tampa Bay area, and if a hurricane comes, it's like, what's gonna happen? And that's just kind of my specific thing. Everything's different everywhere. So, kind of writing to that. This poem is specifically kind of referencing the Permian mass extinction, which was the largest mass extinction in history. Oh my god, I just heard the teacher voice come out of me. You mentioned I was a teacher. I used to do programs in the park, so like if you hear that, just humor me. So this is inspired by the Permian mass extinction, where roughly like 90% of all life on Earth died from climatic upheaval over a long span of time. And I'm definitely not the only person to find themselves resonating with mass extinction, specifically the Permian mass extinction now. So this is, but this is kind of my take on it. And this poem's called "The Mammal Reptile Says Great Dying or 2 degrees. The ocean bleeds its chalk onto my feet, the ones a grandmother gave me, made for running from a disaster, but now each storm is the worst one ever. Where is Laurasia? The waves are softened by sturgeon guts. I wanted to see so much, but not the last day in the age of fish. Ice is the myth we tell of a lost season. Imagine the happy story where it's cold enough to freeze the soil. Where is Gondwana? All I taste is some future's wildfire. The morning chorus is only the rattle of dry ferns. All our songs yellowed and curled. I carry rainwater in a horseshoe crab shell. Pour it onto the dying tree because I was taught this is the only way to save the world. So that's my bummer environmentalist poem. I hope you enjoyed it. That's bummer poems. I'm just scrolling through the computer, making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So that was kind of talking about climate change. I was referencing a lot of the Permian, mass extinction, things like that. I specifically at the end, I was starting to kind of riff on. This was when I was kind of playing with, I think, being a little bit more loud in my political intentions in my poems. So the end was kind of riffing on that kind of neoliberal, like, oh, well, small actions, buy yourself out of climate change. It's gonna be great. Buy yourself a Prius or a Tesla or whatever. So that last kind of stanza was kind of speaking to that idea of like you're holding a cup of water and you're pouring on a dying tree. What does that mean? What is that doing? Speaking to, I think we need to have some great loud action to really to combat most of the issues we're seeing now, but climate change for sure. Oh, it's really cool to talk about all this stuff. I don't really talk about my poems this much, um, so I think we have time for one more poem. And this is, I think, so I talked about how the last poem was me kind of like playing with the political voice. This one I just really decided to go for it. And this is probably one of my favorite poems, to be honest. I think the biggest compliment I ever got as a poet was somebody linked to this poem when Boris Johnson in the UK did, I don't know, he did something something fascist, and someone linked to it. It was like, and I was like, hey, that's the greatest honor. Like, prizes are great and stuff and being nominated, but like someone being like, hey, this poem's about this asshole. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I didn't specifically write it for Boris Johnson, but like the group, the same people. So that was great. So this poem, and I just want to say, I love dinosaurs, but they make a good framework for not great people. They make a good metaphor for that. So just wanted to like preface this with I love dinosaurs. Don't walk away like Ashely said she said some mean things about dinosaurs. I don't trust her. So this is my last poem. This is called, and it's in all caps, so I'm gonna read this a little loud. So it's called "Fuck the Dinosaurs," said the comet. All their breath floral pink on magnolias. Now I have turned my body arc into a guillotine blade. Watch it curve an iron silhouette into your gilded neck. The king is dead. Long live the king of the lizards. Bugle, hadrosaur, oh mercy, but my empathy is a crater in the gulf. How do you think you could eat and eat without consequence? I'll become a traitor to history and turn this earth into a mouth. My hate for you is a layer of stone around the world, and even when my memory is an eroded ring, some future people will wince at its hard consonants in iridium. Let every wave and fire take your palace of cheapskate feathers and empty raptor wit, and let it be known in the last second before I smash myself into ash that my last thought will be that I hope you will all eat shit and die. So, yeah. It's like my favorite poem. I get to say fuck and eat shit. Oh, I should have warned ahead of time. I'm like, don't let your kids watch this. It's gonna be curse words. It's gonna be lewd words in this. So yeah, that's kind of the poems I have set. So if it's cool with you all, we'll do the Q&A. You can ask questions about the poems, or I guess how I am as a poet, or if you just want to talk about cool birds or whatever, that's cool. I can't tell you my favorite bird. There's a lot of them. Okay, so I see a question from Jackie. You have a gift for persona poetry and creating connections between the distant past and the not too distant future. Can you talk about the process of finding a persona a bit? Yeah. So this is something I really like to do in my writing. I've liked to do since I was a kid. I don't know why. I'm really interested in using, I guess, a non-human voice as a persona. Sometimes even, like you said in the last poem, a non-animal object. Actually I've written like a whole bunch of stuff from like the point of view of plants and stuff like that. Obviously, like, I'm anthropomorphizing, which is in my wildlife like thing was like, oh, that's the greatest sin, but whatever. I'm obviously doing that. I like it because I don't know. I think it's fun. It's just fun to step and imagine what the world. Fun. I think it's a good writing exercise to imagine what would the world look like through the lens of a different, or like a completely different organism, something that perceives the world in such a different way than you do. I think is really interesting, and it really can alter your language, um, and allow for things that, like, yeah, I think it can get outside maybe your own boundaries, or like obviously you're still writing from your own viewpoint, like your biases and stuff like that. But I think it can push you to imagine things in a really interesting way. So that's kind of what I like. And like I said, also it's just really fun to be an asteroid for a bit that hates these fucking dinosaurs, these these bourgeoisie dinosaurs, you know. Just wanted to blast them up for a second. So it's fun too. Um, what do you believe is the mark of a successful political poem? Great question. Um, so I will admit I'm no expert in this. I kind of just write with like what my heart wants to say. I'm someone that does inherently believe pretty much every act you do is political. Everything, there's a video I think going around showing like, you know, how the map we use in most of our textbooks and stuff is, you know, was imagined with a Western Christian viewpoint, and how that altered like the way, like the fact that Greenland is huge and Africa, the whole continent of Africa, looks about the same size. So I believe really, and I think this is one example of the many things, everything's kind of inherently political. But I think you can be, so I think any poem, and if anyone tells you it's not about, we're not doing anything political, that's a political move right there, because you're saying that this does not affect me, I can remove it. And not everyone has the right to do that, as we can very well see in the world we are in now. So I guess what makes a successful poem, there's a lot of factors. It depends on who's writing it, for one, who can tell us. I'm someone that doesn't necessarily, there's any topic I think that's off bounds in the general sense, but I do think there are people that should not be writing towards that thing. I think for some examples, I won't name any names or examples, but we saw, I think white people who were well intentioned, were kind of writing reflexively out of this uprising with the Black Lives Matter movement, and were, I think, taking attention and not being, they weren't the voice that needed to be telling that, especially right now. So I think that's one thing to be successful. You have to ask yourself, are you the person that needs to do this? Is this your lived experience? Why are you writing this too? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And also, what I think, also some poems I saw too, like the sentiment was, I see a lot, it's like the sentiment is fine. Like, it's like racism is bad, sexism is bad, and we know these things. And like, I don't want to discourage anyone from writing about it, but it's like, what's the new thing you're bringing to this conversation? Like, we've been talking about this since, really, like, these issues, really, as long as humans have been around writing about it, they've existed in some form or another. So, and originality, you know, you can only do so much, but what is your viewpoint you're bringing in here and stuff? So I try with my poems, and you can argue if they're successful or not, this is kind of just my intention, is I like to, like I said, bring in those personas, bring in this idea of these vast time spans and these vast things into these issues, to kind of play with the framework of how we like think about issues and like temporality. I don't know, something the liminal spaces. And also, just I think a good political poem just also kind of goes for it. I find myself really admiring like leftist poetry a lot, and I'm really finding my voice, I think, in those people that just kind of like, they're just like out there being like, yeah, man, the workers unite, burn it down and stuff like that. Like, there's no coyness. Like, there's still some beautiful lyricism and imagery, but there's like that coyness that you can sometimes see, like, where it's like, it can be political, but like, it's framed for your own personal thing, but that's like just really out there and really being forward. I really like that. I know it's not everyone does. That's my personal aesthetic. Also, like everything I'm saying right now, I will totally acknowledge. I'm coming from my biases and my aesthetics. There's poems that are great that I'll read and I'll be like, this doesn't do anything for me. So that's just kind of my viewpoint. I guess on like what makes a good political poem. I don't know. It depends. And like I said, it can be different for different people. But I think the main questions of who's telling it, why you're telling it, and also you're making money off of it when you're telling this, is definitely a thing. I guess that goes into the why. Are things to consider for what if it's a good and I think a right political poem. So, and also if it's a fascist, bigot poem, then it sucks. It sucks automatically. I don't care. That's bad. I should have just said that up front. I'm like, well, if it's fascist, it's bad. But that's true for everything. So, it kind of goes without being said. So yeah, any other questions? I'm scrolling through to see if I have anything else to talk about. So some other, I wrote notes. See, so I talk about my process a little bit. So actually, I'm running out of time. I'll talk about my process a little bit. Also, real quick, if anyone wants to know, like, how do I write these poems? I talk a little bit about persona and politics. I'm originally a prose writer, so if you're a prose writer and you're like, poetry sounds cool, but how do I get into it? So first, I say start writing lyrical essays. The line between lyrical essay and poems can be pretty short, pretty tight. So start writing that, and then just make line breaks. That's how I started writing poetry. I don't know anything about form or anything like that. I'm just writing something like that's cool, whatever. I got into poetry because my friends were poets, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to hang out with you guys and do poems too and stuff like that. So I don't have any cool righteous like background where I was inspired or anything like that. So yeah, I think that's about time. So so thank you everyone for spending time with me. Sorry about the frame rate, but I hope the audio was okay. Thank you so much, Poets in Pajamas, for giving me this space. It was really lovely. I hope you all are staying safe and informed, whatever you're doing. Again, please check out these links for organizations if you're looking to donate. Like I said, Oprah's Project and the Navajo and Hopi Fund are, I think, very great ones. But also check out organizations in your community, I would say, first and foremost. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace and solidarity and love. Bye. The awkwardly end. How do I stop? Okay, there we go. Goodbye now.